you.
I'd like to take this opportunity to say thank you for joining us today for the regularly monthly scheduled meeting for September 2023. At this time, I'd like to call this meeting to order and call for roll, please.
Mullins.
Here.
Wagers. Wagner. Here. Hanlon. Here. Noggle.
Here. If you will join me for the pledge of allegiance, please. Salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Let's move into one of my favorite parts of the meeting, other than the adjournment, but the Sandai Spirit Award.
All right, I'll start us out here. And I would like Mr. Hunter Harrington to come to the front up here. with me, please. Mr. Harrington and Miss Lee, would you like to join us? Miss Lee nominated Hunter for this award, and she was working in her yard. He saw her out there and he said, I need to help her. So he comes over, starts helping, and then we have the storm on Father's Day, and he helped neighbors clean up debris. This would be extra mile. And I'll tell you, if you're ever in my neighborhood, stop. So for your Sandike spirit, for exemplifying the spirit of a Sandike, you are recognized for outstanding achievement and accomplishments in representing Sand Springs Public Schools and the community. And here is a gift card to Tropical Cafe. I just want to say congratulations. I'm gonna let Miss Lee tell you.
Sure, and it actually wasn't my personal yard, it was our school yard. All the weeds that had grown up over the summer, and so, you know, we love to encourage kids to pick up trash, and he went above and beyond and went out. It was hot that day too, wasn't it? And it was a weekend, so I appreciate your help, Hunter. Good job, Hunter.
You'll be on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn.
1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Good job, Ed.
Yeah, my turn, I enjoy this as well, like Mr. Novel says, our favorite part of the meeting, because we get to recognize superstars. And we've got some superstars. I'm gonna have two of them to join me tonight. Miriam Wilbanks, and I'm gonna try to pronounce this name, and I'm probably going to mess it up, and please forgive me if I do, but it is Davian Aikatiwa. Am I close? Cool. Okay. I asked Sean Beard to come and join me because these guys are really smart, and they've passed a bunch of tests, and they've got GPAs, and there's a whole bunch of initials with these tests that they've taken and what they have done. And I was not that student in school. I didn't take those tests. I didn't do what you guys have done. So Sean's going to read a little bit, but let me read what this is first. It's the Sandai Spirit Award, and this certificate is awarded to both of you guys. I spelled your name right the first time, so I won't try again. For outstanding achievements and accomplishments in representing Sand Springs Public Schools and the community at large. It says think beyond. And obviously these two, and there's one other person that will be joining us, Gracie Massey, but she's playing softball tonight. So we'll get the award to her as well, but there's also a Tropical Smoothie Cafe gift card. So that's yours, and Mary's my neighbor. So she gets one as well. So congratulations. And Sean, please tell us what this is all about.
So that you guys will know what Davian and Miriam and Gracie, who couldn't be here tonight, what they're being recognized for. This is a letter that was sent by Mr. Trout. So these students earned academic honors from the College Board National Recognition Programs. And through their hard work and their grade and their strong academic performance, they're being honored by College Board for, first of all, they had to score pretty high and attain a GPA of 3.5 or higher, a PSAT 10 assessment score within the top 10% of the assessment takers in each state for each award program, or at least earn a score of 3 or higher on 2 or more AP exams in 9th and 10th grade, and attend a school in a rural area or a small town and be identified as African American, Black, Hispanic American, Latino, or Native American. Now, Mr. Trout went further to say, there's so much that makes our students unique, and receiving this honor reinforces this as an asset for their future. It's become increasingly hard for students to be seen during the college recruitment process. We're exceptionally proud of the national recognition programs for celebrating students who are at times overlooked, but have shown their outstanding academic abilities. This is a benefit not only for our students, but also for colleges and universities committed to recruiting these diverse and talented youth. So, congratulations.
Way to go.
I want to ask you some questions too.
You're right. So you're a 10% not at Charles Page High School, 10% nationally. That's a big difference. So congratulations. That's amazing. So go ahead.
What's the future plan? You're a senior, and you're a senior as well? You're a junior. We'll let the senior go first.
I want
Put you on the spot.
I want to become a doctor. Nice.
Cool.
Are you taking biomed?
Yeah, I'm in year 4.
You're in year 4 biomed. There you go.
Wow.
And she wants to be, sometimes, actually it hasn't been too long ago, you would ask that in that class and they would say, well, I want to be a nurse. By the way, there's nothing wrong with being a nurse, but what I do love to hear is they want to be a doctor. So nice, great aspiration.
I just want to become something in business.
Nice.
I like it.
Good.
All right. Cool. Very nice.
Very good.
Mom and Dad, congratulations. Very special kids.
All right. Yep, it's me again. All right. 1, 2, 3. One more. Thank you.
Good job, you guys.
Well, unfortunately, that's all the fun stuff that we have. Now we're gonna get into the nuts and bolts of the meeting, but now is a good time to slip out if you don't want to stay here and listen to that.
They've got homework to do, I can tell. They're having.
Oh, they got gift cards to use.
That's true. That's true.
All right, Ms. Durkee, if you will lead us into student empowerment, staff empowerment, please.
Absolutely. So I've said this for about 2 weeks now. This actually, maybe in the 7 years I've been the superintendent, this might be the best start we've had. Honestly, it's gone really smoothly. Transportation was a little bit of a glitch at first. I'm going to commend Lisa Chittister. She's on down in the agenda under communication, but having her help us communicate out to parents with all of that going on. For as smooth as it could go, it went smoothly. So I'm proud of how we started. We're settled in, school business is normal, it feels good. There's 2 attachments in my notes for instructional strategies. One is our SDE accreditation report. Much like the other reports that we get back that show the proficiency in our district for accreditation, this is our accreditation standard, and in all sites we met the accreditation as presented by the State Board of Education. I know that when you see that, it's like a 1 little page document with about 11 lines, and it seems super simple, but accreditation status isn't an easy task. And so got to commend our team, not just central office, but across the board, teachers, principals, assistant principals. It takes a mountain to get that done. So great job. And I really appreciate that.
Those are neighboring districts, wish they would have the accreditation that we got. So
I'm
we
gonna
do not take it for granted.
Yeah, you can't take that for granted. Let's speak to that, but I will say you get that little document that says Met Accreditation Standard, and it's a big deal, bigger than what it seems like when you see the paper. I wish they'd have bells and whistles or something on it, but it doesn't come with that. And then the second one, the attachment is the Oklahoma Aeronautics grant written by JJ Smith. We have a new staff person in that position this year who has a lot of mechanical type experience with all things aeronautics, and we're moving forward with that program. So I'm really proud of that venture. So those are the three, I think, newsworthy things for discussion of number 4 with instructional strategies. And like you guys-
The accreditation didn't come with a gift card.
I wish it would have, but no, it would have been great if it happened. No.
All right, let's move on to resource innovation, please.
So, first of all, we are still in this place for the board meeting, but not because Dick Watts and Jeannie aren't really trying hard to get us in. I gave you a little rendition. I apologize because I literally just quoted a text message and you know how it can go because it feels like those text messages never end up in complete sentences, but I wanted you to see her words. The cabinetry is really kind of the hitch that we're waiting on because of the damage that Dick Watts had in his shop. But those are close and I feel very confident by the October board meeting will actually be in the new space. So it's coming along great, last touches. We're hoping first floor folks can move in a couple weeks. He's doing a final clean next week. So I think we'll finally have the establishment of all of our central office staff under one roof, which is quite a feat. I'm very proud of that. Also, with the help of Mr. Mullins, thank you, by the way, for helping with the whole construction management process. It was lengthy, you guys. We spent a lot of time interviewing 4 companies. I was excited that we actually had 4 companies interested in our work. But we have settled on LD Kearns. After the second interview, we called 2 back to drill down some questions. For me, it was about number 1, cost. We have to be frugal with the people's money, there's no doubt. But the other part of it is having a company that I know is going to answer a phone call or answer a text. And right now I have David Kearns' cell phone number. And so they're pretty responsive, which goes a long way for me. But again, also very fiduciarily responsible. I don't know if that's a word, but just taking care of the people's money as well. Again,
Well, they do that so the board will know, yes, I appreciated the opportunity to sit in there and participate in that communication. Ms. Durkee is tough. I don't want to be on the negotiating side without her on my side. She is tough, but she is very passionate about Sand Springs. And that showed very well in the interview. And this team that we are looking at tonight, they really want to work for us. They're
Right.
going to be this is going to be a showplace for them. It's going to be high on their resume. And so I think that's one reason they said, they're not the biggest fish out there,
No.
but they're going to be a big fish for us. They're going to get it done right. And they really want to work for us. Like I say, Miss Durkee is tough.
relationships count, but competency is even more important
Very
and
good.
of course cost. And so I don't mean to be tough. We're working for Sand Springs and the people. And so you gotta do, and the kids, you gotta do the right thing. So of course, that's all pending, the bond election and the outcome thereof. We've had really great results in the past. We're gonna work our tails off to make sure people are very informed of what those projects are. But anyway, I'm really proud. You'll see 3 projects in the board agenda. The 3, I've been talking about it for a while, 3 kind of larger projects that they won the bid to manage. Doesn't mean we have numbers back of what those are actually going to cost. As you know, that's competitive bidding and it'll go out for bid in the way that it's required by law. But definitely we have out of the gate a team that can help us put those plans together. So it's a good thing. I'm pretty excited about that. With the update for the work from the storm in June, shingle roof at Angus is complete. They started the flat roof last week. It's in process right now. PAC, the Performing Arts building at the high school as well, on the way to full occupancy. Larry Lynn Snyder from CCR called today. They're still waiting on a few the window panes is the biggest key, but the carpet came in early. We're really hoping we might be able to have some people in that facility by homecoming, which is September 29th. So that's good. So it's coming along pretty quickly. The sports complex, it's moving. Fitzy Company is not available until mid-October to replace the fence. We've been in consistent contact with the O6, so working pretty closely with their adjuster to make sure we're getting the funding that we deserve. I will say there was some worry about, how long it was going to take. I think they've run a magnet across that field 3 times. They're still pulling bolts up that are kind of lodged in the dirt. So it did a little bit of a number. We just approved a bid for some dirt coming in. I know the coaches were really worried about getting the field prepped because that's the process. You don't just get to lay seed in the spring and it's green, ready for season. So they do that starting in October. So we've okayed that work as well. So the kids are there, they're practicing. I think he's kind of avoiding the field at this point until they're sure the metal's all off the field. But again, it's been a trip. I didn't, Rod sitting, we were discussing this the other day. He said, I'm about ready to have a booster club come, start at one side of the field and just kind of work through it to make sure the metal is off. And we're talking the bolts that bleed from the fence. So it's been a process for sure. Golly, the Vernon Florence newsletter is attached. I love that one. If you read it, it could make you pause a minute. July collections were under what they were last July at this time. He also talks about it's early to worry about it yet. I think the collections were under like over 4%. They calculate revenue and appropriate, and they say 5% in case this happens. So as long as that level doesn't get to 5%, we don't have to worry about a revenue failure. However, it's also smart and prudent to make sure you're watching it every month. And so just so you know kind of where we're at, the money hasn't rolled in revenue wise at the state level like they predicted. And then let's see, I think that is probably it. There's a little bit, the budget is going to be presented by Ms. Newby tonight and items number 53 and 54. My kind of hooray is our net assessed value for the community. The District of Sand Springs property value increased 7.29%, which is a huge bonus for us, especially in bonding capacity. So that was a real plus. And that's the second year in a row it's been over 7%. So that was the big news, but I'm going to save the rest of it so that when she starts in, you can ask those questions. Any question? Finance facility. Okay. And Mr. President, if you want, or if you're ready, moving on to number 6.
Please do.
Communication, family engagement. Ms. Chittister, Lisa gets a lot of kudos. The communication out is about 1,000 times better than I feel like it was when we were trying to do that on our own. So kudos to her. We have initiated a process by which all of the sites have a communication coordinator, and they're helping deliver some of that messaging at the site. Lisa did an amazing job with professional development for those folks at the first of the year, letting them know how Apogee works. How do I send out text messages? How do I update my news at the site? So just lots of kudos to her. And again, you may or may not, if you're a parent, you got a communication today, just because we had an issue at Page Academy today, and we're going to talk through that with the safety part. So any questions about communication? Okay.
Moving on to health and safety.
Health and safety, the big news probably of the day, other than Page Academy, which I'll briefly talk about tonight, is football security. As you are, I'm sure, very well aware, there were some events that happened not Friday night, but a week ago Friday night, specifically Choctaw, involving a tragedy of a student. There were a couple of other incidences, one involving a prior student, the other at Booker T, where unfortunately guns appeared at games. And so we had, if you'll remember last season, had already changed our protocol at games in that we were asking students to sit down. We had increased the number of staff members, leadership team members that we had at games just for visibility and to make the students sit down. We're upping our game a little bit, increasing that now. We're all going to be in quote unquote uniform, meaning kind of some bright yellow t-shirts, should be really fun with staff on the back, just to create a presence. We're not going to allow people to re-enter, just some of those protocols that I think are necessary for maintaining security, because I think we're all kind of at that heightened awareness. Nobody wants that to happen in a game, ever. We've talked through the possibility of metal detectors at the gates, and I'm going to be honest, we've ordered some. They're not going to be in before Bixby's game, which is this Friday night, but they should come in pretty soon. Rod Sitton was going to call and try to get that expedited, but again, as we sat in a superintendent's meeting, Zoom meeting across the state with over 220 superintendents, everybody was looking to up their game. So I think that's going to be kind of the consistent theme across the state. Maybe from this day forward, I don't know, but these are mobile. We're hoping by Friday night, probably not going to happen by the Bixby game, just so you're aware. But we can card them into the doobie at those games as well.
Just walk through kind.
Mhm.
You have somebody on the other side that's gonna have a wand.
We have
That's,
We have 2 wands that we own. We use those, Boyd's not here, but we use those for vape detectors. Honestly, that was primarily the reason because that was such a problem and it did deter, I feel like, kids from bringing those as much as they used to, but yeah, we've got wands. We talked through that and probably at the quarterback gate, where not very many people come in because that's going to take a little bit of time because the person's going to have to do the whole,
well, I was just saying, because probably 90% of the people that walk through that metal detector is gonna go off.
yeah, for sure.
I mean,
Yeah,
keys,
right.
change,
Mhm.
belt buckle,
So we'll have to have a table.
whatever. So it's gonna be,
So we send the message. So you were probably at the game at OSU Saturday. And so we were there too. And of course, the clear bag policy's been a thing at college football because forever. But I think once people are accustomed to it, it becomes kind of protocol that lots of people do. I walked into OSU game, I had my clear bag. She said, turn it over. I turned it over. You can see everything inside it. If I know that there's going to be a metal detector, I'm probably not going to put something in my clear bag that's going to set it off. So I think it's just something I got to get used to. You know what I mean? Like if I'm going into a concert and I know I'm aware that my bag's not going to go through, or the State Department of Ed, when we go to the Capitol, that's a thing. So you just know that. And I feel like if we communicate it out and get it out there, then maybe we won't have much pushback.
yeah, I think people will be okay with it as long as we let them know ahead of time,
Exactly.
way ahead of time.
Exactly.
It's going
Absolutely.
to happen so that they can plan.
Agree.
If I usually get there 30 minutes early, I might want to get there an hour early.
The other stipulation that we put on opposing teams, because at our Sapulpa game, we had some visitors that weren't from Sapulpa. And so we had a couple of instances in our stands with some students from another district that were causing a little ruckus, and we had to mitigate what could have been a couple of fights. And then we had some students from Bartlesville that were with coaches. Fine, that's great. They were at the game because we played them, so they were scouting. And then I think Booker T had a couple of students there, and so we're just saying no, unless you're with an adult. If you're from an opposing school, you don't get to come to take care of that. And we're asking opposing students to also have their ID. Rod was telling me, I believe Bartlesville doesn't have student IDs. I think I'm saying the right district. So we're going to issue bracelets, and they have to have their bracelet to buy a ticket to get in for student. So I hate it. Nobody wants to implement precautionary measures, but at this point in time, that's where we are. So
I think they'll be fine with
Yeah.
it right now.
I agree.
What has
Totally
gone
agree.
on.
Sure, will we post a sign outside stating what these things are so
absolutely.
everybody's getting treated the same way? And
Absolutely. Yeah, Rod's taking care of all of that signage at the front. And I'm not gonna say this is the first little rodeo that we're gonna be implementing. We'll probably make some mistakes, but we'll definitely learn from those and make it a better process. We did have an incident this morning, whereas we had a student with a gun at Page Academy. We sent out messaging to our parents. Thank you, Lisa Chivester, for doing that. It was a non-event, meaning our police department works really well with us, and they also work well with the other area police departments. And so it was discovered immediately. And we took the appropriate precautionary measures as went out on the text message, and that student was removed. And disciplinary action has occurred. So everybody should rest assured that that particular incident isn't going to happen again with that particular student. And I'll leave it at that because it is a student. However, it certainly makes us go back to the drawing board about, do we place metal detectors at the school sites for every day? I I'm gonna have to think on that because there is evidence that making kids come through those, and I have not had this discussion with our leadership team yet. We'll do that tomorrow at leadership. So just know we're in ongoing discussions about how that can look, does it need to happen, those kinds of things. And we have, as you know, a very stellar team in leadership at our sites. And so they're gonna have great input. All those precautionary measures that we had last year are still in place. It just, when you have that happen, it sure makes you stop and really reconsider your practices. So it's where we're at, I think now.
Think
Yes.
that communication with the students is your best way to detect what's going on.
100%.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it, unless you put a 10-foot chain link fence around the whole campus
Yeah.
and there's too many doors to come in and out of school,
Right,
too many ways to come in and out of the school
right,
to stop every single student.
correct. And they
It's gonna
leave to
come.
go to another building.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I
We
mean,
have athletes going to,
they walk by their car.
yeah,
So, you're gonna have to detect them or walk through that every single time they go out the door and back in the door.
one thing I think we do well is relationships with kids. And I think that is ultimately one of the most important things you can do. And I think research will show that over the course of time, how you build relationships, kids talk, and they do report, which is great. But I also don't want to get overly confident
No.
in that it could never happen because we're just in that place where you just want to do everything you can. So. Agree.
That's not a bad thing though.
No, not at all.
But just in that same light, if we have anything related to the school, this last Friday in Sand Springs, do you have any kids anywhere, busted, detained, anything like that?
No, all of our buses were not in the vicinity. You're talking about the incident at Walmart.
Mhm.
Yeah, none of our buses were in the vicinity at the time. And so when I had Mr. Anderson, interestingly, he was driving a bus, so John Sumar was at the helm. He's assistant director out there. They had already talked about rerouting the buses to Gilcrease. So now we have two outlets in the dam. So they were rerouting them. So they weren't in that vicinity, which is good.
So
So,
kids even got home on time, if you will.
right, right. And they might have been a few minutes late because that's a little bit of a jaunt, but not too bad. Gilcrease is pretty fast. So.
We get gift card for them.
One thing I'd add in the safety component, I've been in connect with John Mars, our police chief.
Yeah.
And we do have that 92,000 that is a 3-year appropriation. It's running through the grants management system, which is interesting, but John and I are in agreement that we can get one more officer through the police department to serve the school. So it's kind of a win-win for both of us. So we'll be doing that as well. So anyway, it just takes time. My only precursor to that is it's hard to find people. It took us a while to find Jonathan Noah, who, by the way, has worked out fabulous, but it just takes a little bit of time to find people. So that's going to be the big struggle, doing it quickly. Any questions about safety and security?
We want to consider it, please.
Okay. Couple things. Number 19, not that this is new, it's not new. However, just know that resignations continue to happen. Oh, there's Arnold. Miss Arnold keeps hiring people, but I do want you to notice that these are not certified teachers. That's a big statement, I think. So we've got a couple of paraprofessionals and a behavior tech, and we're on the road to hiring those folks, but just, they still happen. Resignations still happen. Number 21, not the report is on this agenda as well. That is quarterly requirements. Item number 38 is new. That's Daktronics extended service agreement or extended warranty. That's our new scoreboard, guys. And so just know that we have an escape clause. I'm joking. I don't really know the right words for it, but we, after a year, can get out if we choose to. But that was a big expenditure. And so we'd like to continue the warranty as long as we can. So that's new, something you guys haven't seen before.
If we get too far away from that, 21, am I reading that right? the high school was full with the exception of 4 students, 4 slots in the 12th grade. We are
Yes.
capacity, that's amazing.
It's amazing. And here's the thing. Carrie would tell you that we would probably reconsider our board capacity. I'm gonna tell you, I'd rather hire more teachers. But transfers, I haven't checked with you lately and I hate to ask you off the cuff, so I'm not going to. Thank you. Or before. But we were, last time I asked her, it was well over 200 transfers. We had that many last year. I know we're over that this year as well. So I love that. At the same time, you also have to be able to provide teachers for them and space. So just kind of a word of caution.
Even though we're at total capacity at the high school, if somebody moves in,
We have to serve them.
we accept them,
Absolutely.
bring them in.
Yeah, there are residents. So that's the tricky part because once you accept a transfer, you've got them. Unless there's a behavior or attendance problem. And so. That's still not till the next year. Right. So still not till the next year, but that transfer continues the next year under the they don't apply again. So you gotta stay. So I don't want to exclude anybody, but at the same time, we've got to have a balance. And honestly, I love it that people request them because it means we're doing our job. So just something to kind of keep in mind. And I will tell you, we're close to 5,200 kids total district wide. We've been higher than that in the past. It's been a few years ago. About 10 years ago, maybe. It's been a while, but we've said it 5,200 before. So that's not atypical. And I will say we still have room at Angus and Pratt for some additional classrooms. Jay was sitting in the audience, and sometimes principals don't really want to admit that because they love their space, but we do have some spare rooms.
High school
So
has additional space for additional classes as well.
not as many. Those 2 elementaries are probably the ones that have the most space. And I feel like we can accommodate about 100 kids in each one of those places. So we're not full yet. The trick really is not just about physical space, it's also about teacher. Yeah. So it's twofold.
Do we keep track of like where the majority come from or,
We certainly could have that report.
I mean, don't go through any,
Yeah.
don't jump through any hoops. I was just curious as to, is there a concentration like they come
Asked-
south, the west, the
I know.
north,
I've asked that question before. I didn't this year, but
where they come from? 'Cause,
interestingly, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Tulsa, we've had as far away as Bristow. Keystone, of course, and the Anderson, those are normal, but Tulsa. I've had from BA.
Yeah, we get from BA, Owasso, I mean, really, Berry Hill, Manford, I mean, just, most of them are surrounding, quite a few TPS, I mean, it's, not a ton of people that are driving a far distance. A lot of times, if that's the case, maybe it's a teacher's child.
Oh, right,
So they're coming in and transferring in because mom or dad's coming to school every day.
right.
But no, it's pretty big sampling, honestly.
Broad. Cause I thought it would be kind of located in one area that it's.
Yeah, I figured it'd be like Manford,
Yeah.
area, True.
Yeah.
that stuff.
Or Tulsa. I thought.
Yeah. West Tulsa,
Yeah, but
I don't know. Huh, that's cool.
this, yeah, we have had this.
Any other consent agenda items? Saw that the national is in April. The
Yeah.
National School Board,
Yep, it's in April. That's through the eighth.
yeah.
Yes.
When do we need to tell you that we're gonna go or not?
I hadn't, when does it open up as? I think it's coming up.
It says tomorrow, but in the past, that's for the special groups that can register. So if you can let me know, if in case I can get into, but
So it's probably a good idea to let her know.
I must talk tomorrow morning.
Rush, but by 9 o'clock tomorrow morning.
All right, seeing no other discussion, I'll call for a motion, please.
I'll make the motions. The agenda. The consent agenda.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Call.
Let me just say, I was gonna say one thing. There's a lot of teachers and administrators that are participating in these committees. And my goodness, Carrie, Sean, Claudia, all of you, Jay, thank y'all. That's a big deal. That is a huge deal. Take on extra assignments, stuff like that. I appreciate that.
Committee work doesn't come with a stipend either. That's what you know. So these people volunteer, they do it because they want to be a part of it. They want to be a part of decision making. They want to be a part of the information. It's pretty outstanding.
We don't know.
No, sometimes. It depends.
Further discussion? Call for a vote, please.
Mullins.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
Hamlin. Aye. Knuckle.
Aye. Move into action items. Do I hear a motion to move to executive session, discuss temporary teacher employment recommendation? Do I hear a second?
Did you say you want to go there?
No.
Oh, well,
Doesn't want to go there.
She said she had a.
Didn't understand.
I didn't
Woo, we're good. Just brush it off.
as long as I do it outside, everything will be good.
The rain.
Look, Miss Doobie is watching your weather for us down there,
Yeah.
just in case.
Got it.
All right, so we'll move on to item 50. Do I hear a motion that we approve of temporary teacher employment recommendation?
Make a motion to approve the temporary teacher employment recommendations as noted.
Second.
Any discussion? Call for a vote, please.
Mullins.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
Hamlin. Aye. Knuckle.
Aye. Item 51. Do I hear a motion to move into executive session, discuss the employment recommendations? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion on item 52.
Make a motion to approve the employment recommendations in item.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the so stated proposal? Call for vote, please.
Mullins.
Aye.
Wagner. Hamlin. Knuckle.
Aye. Item 53. Proposed approval of the first revised budget for the 2023-2024 school year.
We need to review that. If you don't mind taking them through just the highlights. Board's permission, I would like to discuss 53 and 54 together since they are related.
Yes, ma'am. Please do so.
Basically, before I get into the budget, I just want to talk about the estimate of needs, as the board knows. From our auditors is only for our sinking fund since we are on the School Budget Act. So that sinking fund is reflected in our sinking fund budget from the estimate of needs, and it is appropriate. If you look on the general revenue, general fund, Fund 11 for general fund revenue, that page, which I believe is on the page number 4. Just to kind of give some highlights here. When we're talking about local revenue, I adjusted the local revenue to 5%, just being conservative. It doesn't mean that I don't expect that it won't come in at the higher 7%. And is what we had last year. As of right now, I'm just wanting to be conservative, and then come second revised budget, if the trend continues to be higher, then I will adjust it upwards. If you look just at different from original budget to revised budget, you're going to see a few of the areas that were adjusted either upward or downward. The upward ones, a lot of them were based on previous year's revenue collected, which were just estimates at the time whenever I did the original budget. Our foundation aid is down. If you look at that line, it is down approximately 413,000 from our initial estimate. Based on our current allocation notices, but that changes as well as we go throughout the year. So I will update that as well. Again, program revenues were adjusted upward or downward based on current allocation notices. And to bring to your attention, we have 2 new grants that are in general fund revenue as well. We have a new 21st Century Schools grant of $300,000 for Angus and Limestone. And we also have a new Muskogee Nation Before and After School Summer Grant of $75,000. So if you look at the bottom line, you're looking at overall revenue being about $500,000 more than our original budget. Some of it is due to the new grants and the rest of it is just due to adjustments.
Now, I may mention this maybe of the balance forward. I wrote this in my notes, but I want to make sure you're aware. So for the past 2 years, we've been operating with COVID relief money, in which we were using a lot of it to do some facilities work. HVAC, course enrollment center, some of our admin remodel, security cameras. And I kept saying, I know that the balance forward is going down, and it did over the last couple of years, about $500,000. And I kept saying, we're paying it in advance, meaning we're getting reimbursed for what we're spending. And so what you're seeing with the balance forward, we literally, quote unquote, have caught up to that, because now we're at the place where every expenditure that we've used for construction that were one-time expenditures, that's all done. So we've gotten back all the money that we had coming to us based on a reimbursement plan. But you don't get reimbursed until July, after July, for previous year expenditures in federal dollars. And so I kept saying, we're down, but let the dust settle and we'll be back where we are. Well, so now we're back where we were. I just want to make that point, because I don't know about you all, but for me, I was seeing it kind of decrease over time. And it wasn't I knew we would see that reflection eventually. It's just now that we do, I wanted to make that point, which I'm.
What line item is that?
It's the prior year fund balance. It's at the very bottom,
Oh, okay.
the 6,000.
Prior fund
6,000.
balance. Okay. Thanks.
Okay, what else? Christie? Any other questions on the revenue page before we move to expenses? Okay, next page down is Fund 11 for your general fund expenditures. Again, based on the fact that we have new grants that are in place and updated allocations, I adjusted the expenditures as appropriate. And just as Superintendent Darky mentioned, our fund balance is higher. And that actually, we're bumping up against what we are allowed, the 14%. So we have allocated an additional $500,000 to be pushed into instructional expenses. And again, those are estimates, but that's what we're pushing in as of right now. Can I just, well, I'm sorry, I mean, I can't stand it. So notice in the original budget, we were estimating 26 million in instructional expenses. So that would be your people. Most of our budget is about people, guys, and you know that. Notice the difference between the actual 23 of 23.1 to the first revised of 26.3. And you'll notice a difference of $3.1 million between the two, meaning that is how we're accounting for teacher raises. So if you'll remember, they got a pretty incredible increase, which ended up in a state aid apportionment, and that's where you're seeing that.
I'm just laughing at this because item 2310
Under revenue or expenses.
under expenses.
Expenses. I
Yes.
think we're expensive.
Yeah.
That's funny. Well, a portion of that is Beth's salary too.
I will pay.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions on expenditures,
That-
general fund expenses?
That 26.3 again, Jerry, Mr. You indicated that does include the additional,
Yeah,
that's the raise everybody
it's
got.
the raises.
And then
Yeah, it includes support and certified, and that includes administrators. So we saw an increase of about 3.1 million, and we just poured it all into instructional and support raises. So that's what it was for.
and tell me where that's at on the revenue side,
Revenue side, look at state aid.
the state aid number.
So 3210. We went from 19.7 actual in 23 to 22.8. So there's your 3.1 million.
Any other questions? Basically, if you look at Fund 12, which is the next page, which is co-op, we are required to spend the co-op revenue, and so I just made sure that I adjusted that accordingly so that we can spend down on the co-op revenue. That's the only change there.
Any questions on co-op before we move to building fund? If you look at the next page after that on building fund, the beginning balance is slightly over 2 million. We have, again, made sure that approximately 1 million in expenditures is for the construction costs related to the demolition of the old admin gym and building. And then I just put in, just because you never like to have to come back and ask for a revised budget before the second revised budget. Precautionary, 800,000 was put into construction services in case we need any district repairs, just making sure the money's allocated there. Don't know that we anticipated spending it, but it's there if we need to. Any questions on that? Okay, child nutrition funds, which is the next page, and then pages behind that, bond funds and sinking fund and gift fund. Basically, every one of them remained the same, except for just slight changes in the fund balances. No questions on that. I'll move on to the insurance fund. That'll be the fun one.
Mhm.
Right. Insurance fund, we are estimating 2.5 million to be received for the June 18th windstorm damage event. And all the expenses are being tracked with spreadsheets and reimbursements from OSIG and payments made to vendors. They will all occur out of Fund 86. Until we get some of the money back to be able to operate off of. We are having to put placeholders in building fund, but it's not, we are transferring them over and everything is running out of Fund 86.
We still yet to get the itemized report from OSIG. Christy and I drive Damon. Damon's our adjuster to OSIG. We probably drive him nuts. And Mike too, because Mike has Melissa described about not having that report back, but we'll keep you posted on that. We don't know exactly what OSIG is going to pay until we see the itemized statement. We've sent them everything, by the way. They have an adjuster that comes out, and then of course we have our people that come and do the scope of work and itemize exactly what it's going to cost. So we just are waiting for their report. So that's to be determined.
General Fund 86, I'm not looking at the right.
It's the very end.
It's the last page is kind of, that one has always been crammed together. I'm more than happy to break those out in the future, but Fund 86 should be at the very bottom of that. It's kind of small. Maybe next time I'll break it out.
That's okay.
81 and then 86.
I would prefer not having to use Fund 86 actually, so that means we don't have insurance money coming in from damage, but unfortunately that's. Questions?
I'll entertain a motion that we accept the revised budget for the 23-24 school year.
I will make that motion.
I'll second.
Call for vote, please.
Mullins,
Aye.
Wyman,
Aye.
Hamlin, Knopf.
Aye. Item 54.
Make a motion, we approve the estimate of needs for the 23-24 school year as identified in the movie. And the turkey.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions? Call for vote, please.
Mullins,
Aye.
Wyman, Hamlin, Knopf.
Aye. Item 56.
So these are, the first one is the maternity leave
Aye.
policy.
55, sorry. Back up.
55, I was on it. Supposed to. As you probably are aware, the legislature supported and approved maternity leave for teachers. Maternity for women, not men, just FYI. It came with the policy that's required, which is what this is. It's straight off of the OSSBA's website, short and sweet, but basically we allow it, which we have to. What we don't know, and I don't know if Ms. Arnold's got clarification or not, is how the state's going to reimburse that. Are they going to reimburse daily rate for teacher or sub pay? So that's a little unclear, but the policy just simply says we will have that, we'll offer it. The second is season ticket. Ms. Arnold probably caught this one. This is something we had in policy, I believe, but we are right. No, we didn't.
I didn't see that until the agenda came out.
No,
So
I thought whenever I,
Okay, gotcha.
that one came from, but
We were updating the policy because it didn't match the rates we're charging for people to get in games. So sometimes policies that don't get revised, periodically become very out of date. So we wanted to make it reflect what our current prices are. Beth caught it, you're right. Aren't too much attention. So that's
The
it.
only thing I would suggest is on that 2010-11 general admission. I don't know if that's marked through. On the copy, I'm with that. You see toward the bottom, tickets and pass information.
It's in past information. Oh, right, Beth. So we didn't strike through the 2010-11. You guys see that at the
Yeah.
very end? So that needs to be,
Jay,
to the current 23-24. So I would ask for approval with that correction. Good catch.
how many home games are there?
Unless we have
Football.
five. Yeah, unless we have a Corsa.
So reserve seat is $12 a ticket?
Yes, that's correct. And yeah, they was 10. They sell those by I believe the booklet. So reserve seats are reserve seats. for
Yeah.
the season. Yeah,
The football is $8 to get in?
correct.
And football's the only sport that has reserved seats.
That I'm aware of.
All right, do I hear a more?
Can I go back to the maternity thing?
Absolutely.
It doesn't
Gotcha.
say just women. Do we need to add that to it? Should we get an opinion of that?
Um,
It says all employees.
that's a great question. This was by OSSBA,
You really put it out?
female employees.
yeah, it does say.
It is interesting.
It is just women by law.
Maybe it's the definition of maternity.
Well, maternity is maternal. So I feel like we're okay because that would be paternity leave. So I think we're fine. I trust Julie Miller's judgment on that one. Okay.
It's me.
I think we
Was
just,
questioned on that.
yeah. I suppose. But I feel like the word maternity would
Okay.
signify moms.
We're not gonna go there.
I was just gonna stop talking now.
Not this day and age.
First read,
It can be the first read. Do we have to have it on policy by accreditation?
Doesn't say by accreditation, but it was one that is like should already be into effect. We were just waiting on OSBA to come up with the language.
These are per state law. A lot of times we can send policy through the policy committee meeting or committee and go, what do you think about this? Like, we're getting ready to review our personal leave policy, which leaves itself to a little bit more board autonomy to get to decide that. This one is required by law. So that's the reason lately we've been asking for a lot of policies to be approved in first read because it's dictated to us, not because we're choosing, but because we have to by state law.
I'm also gonna say that, I'm gonna go on here to say that if it's approved now, I can't tell you that the language might not change later and that you see this one in front of you again, because the day that the female has the child is when their maternity leave starts and FMLA starts. And then in accordance, and that's part of the questions OSSBA is getting in accordance with FMLA and what that looks like. There's some questions that are there. So they have a lot of questions they're answering. But it did state that, that you needed something in the policy, but I can't tell you that in 2 months, some of the language might change. That's why we pushed it forward.
When they push regulations out, some of them require board policy, some require procedures. This is one that requires board policy.
You sending Julie a note, see if she'll answer us tonight.
Absolutely. And to also, Mr. Mullins, that's likely how the regulation reads, because it's regulation.
Mhm.
Which is.
And she may not answer because it's a Tuesday night instead of a Monday.
I'm just gonna look up the law. It's true. It's. So here's the reason it says it's quoted like that. I'm pulling up the law that's actually in title. The 6 weeks of paid maternity leave shall be used. That's how it's referred to in law. Which is the reason she used that language.
That way.
Yeah.
Then again, maybe the definition of maternity as opposed to paternity.
Well, I should Google the definition of maternity.
Don't Google the definition of woman.
I'm not-
I said you can't figure that out.
Maternity, motherhood. She is. Well, and it goes on to describe that, but basically a woman with interest in maternity. So
And if we come back and we get a legal.
can
opinion,
revise.
we can-
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I look for that to be revised because there are a lot of businesses that also offer dad's paternity leave.
Yes.
And so it is likely, it is potentially possible, I'll put it like that we would have to revise that anyway.
I was thinking when Sean has another child.
There you go, yeah.
He's in Norway, you can get it here.
Right?
We need to adjourn.
Does it apply also to adoptions? I think it's not.
I don't think so.
There's a separate policy that we have in there about paternity and adoption, but this covers birth.
It's only birth. And it starts the day after the birth of the child. So it's just interesting because it's really been burdensome for some districts. Because if you had a teacher that gave birth at the 1st of August, right? That maternity is just 6 weeks after the birth of the child. So they'd really only get 4 weeks if you start mid-August. Does that make sense? And so there's been a little bit of debate about, but the law was pretty specific, immediately following the birth. So
So what if they are put on bed rest? How does that
if
work?
they haven't.
That goes into
child. Yeah, that's if MLA, but it doesn't, wouldn't be maternity leave because the child has not been born yet.
yet.
We picked this one apart. As
Which
much
goes into FMLA, which can be intermittent, and that's why there's so many questions still around it, but OSBA felt like there needed to be a policy that they're still trying to pick through parts of it because FMLA allows for intermittent, but then if you're out of FMLA and you get your 6 weeks, but if you 6 weeks prior, what does that look like?
So you can intermittently take the maternity leave if, say, the child had an issue, an illness, then you couldn't split it. It's just very specific. It's the 6 weeks after the birth of the baby with the mom. Great questions, though. We all have the same question.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion, we approve item number 59. The policies for maternity leave and season ticket.
With the correction to the city.
With the.
Yes,
with the
thank you.
correction today.
Yep, good catch.
Thank you for that.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Call for vote, please.
Mullins?
Aye.
Langen? Aye. Hammond? Aye. No.
All right. Now we can go to 56.
56 is just our master agreement with KKT. Same reflection that we had last year with our master agreement with them. They didn't do a whole lot of work last year. And so we didn't have a ton, but this year, because of the planning of the bond issue, that will be really important. And they've been fantastic. So
Do I hear a motion to accept item 56?
I better make that motion. They'll get on to me if I don't. So please, yes, I will.
Have a second?
I'll second.
Sure, let me just ask you to do one thing with that, and I was looking through it, it doesn't state in there what their consultants are gonna be.
There should have been a backup document.
I didn't see the consultants, they just have their people. But the MEP engineers weren't listed, there'll be a consultant to them. I'm just curious what the fee would be for that particular group. I know they've been very fair to us.
Oh, yeah,
in that.
right.
It's
Yep.
not included in the actual
Okay.
contract with KKT. But
I can
we'll
ask
make
for that.
sure too, that the consultant is actually working for KKT and not working for us.
Correct. Yeah, gotcha. Mine's not pulling up, so I'm not. Like screen scroll. Yeah, I can do that. Small for sure. Just go all the way down. There's an addendum that shows the hourly on those. Yeah, it's the same addendum that was on there. Oh, there it
But
is.
it doesn't list their engineers, just a structure.
Oh, gotcha.
In-house.
Yeah, gotcha.
They're mechanical, electrical people
Gotcha. Yep.
outside. It'd be civil people, there'll be a different consultant and geotechnical and all that stuff. They identified them.
Yeah. Okay.
It also states, I know Sarah's done this for us, that we have to pay her extra if she wants to come to any public meetings that we have to participate and stuff. And she's been really good to help us in. that.
Yeah, there may be times, she's pretty good to us. And a lot of the things they're doing is probably above and beyond, honestly. One of the things that we're gonna get her to do is a structural on the old gymnasium. Eventually, over here that we've vacated. So, and she's also been pretty helpful in promoting. I'm recollecting last year when we were promoting the bond, I don't remember them coming to a lot of our public meetings. You know, we just broadcast it as far and wide as we could, and I don't remember KKT helping in that way, but of course she would if we needed her to. I used a lot of it, she puts in writing, like, I wanted her structural assessment, and so a lot of times, I don't know if you remember the letter about the appropriateness of the old Central Ninth Grade Center for Students and class size and all of those, all of that data that she did as an assessment of that building being appropriate. To me, having that as a backup is really powerful. So absolutely.
We have a motion in seconds.
I think I made the
Okay. Call for a vote, please.
Mullins,
Aye.
Wagner, Hammond, Noggle.
Aye. Item 57,
Yeah, and again, I would just add to that, that I'm asking for approval to use LD Kern Contractors as our construction manager. Of course, pending bond approval on these projects. So obviously it has to be with passage of the bond.
Make a motion that we're in agreement with LD Kearns. So that the construction manager for our next projects, pending approval of a successful bond issue.
And I'll second.
I have a motion in second. Any further discussion? Call for a vote, please.
Mullins,
Aye.
Wagner, Hammond, Noggle.
Aye. Any announcement?
No, sir.
I move we adjourn.
I'll second.
Call for a vote, please.
Mullins,
Aye.
Wagner, Hammond, Noggle.
Aye.
And that-
Aye.
Yes.